We good? Mm-hmm. Hey students, Pastor Casey here. We are live on Instagram. My goal was to just get this video out to encourage you this afternoon. I know we missed our time together, our life group hour at 9:30 this morning, but I wanted to kind of give you a synopsis of what was going on with week 4. I also wanted to drop some discussion questions for you after this video has posted. And this week you can look on Instagram and our Facebook private group and look up daily devotions that should be out Monday through Friday. A little picture, little clip of a verse and a question for you to ask yourself based on what's going on with now and later. So obviously now and later that we've been doing with our life group time has been this opportunity for us to look through Proverbs, looking at the idea that what we do now really matters for what will happen in our later. So just to give you a little bit of synopsis, a little bit of background of what we've talked about too. So week 1 was a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this idea that wisdom now can help you miss mistakes later. Dove into Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6. The next week we talked about a good reputation is good for you now and good for you later in our look at Proverbs 22. Then last week on social media I posted for our week 3, Proverbs 14:23, the end you want tomorrow is connected to what you do today. So today, just in a brief synopsis, we're talking about the now and later week 4, which is the patient people know there's more to the story, which is Proverbs 19:11. So let me read it for you. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is the one's glory to overlook an offense. Proverbs 19:11. Did you know there's a website out there called the Top Tens, top10s.com? And they give a top 10 of things that range from food to house pets to you name it. But one of the things I found fascinating about the website was the amount of things that were directed to what other people do. So on our top 10, I found this fascinating when we were looking through this. The top 10 biggest pet peeves out there. Maybe as you're thinking along with Instagram land, what is your top pet peeve right now? If you're sitting quarantined in your house for the last few days, perhaps you've thought a lot about the fact that you don't have as much patience as you thought you did. But the top number 1 was when people chew with their mouth open. Number 3 was about people who have bad driving etiquette. And since I'm an introvert, most of the time, Shannon might disagree with me, most of the time I'm screaming in my head about how bad people drive long before I say it out loud. Number 7 was about when someone else copies you, maybe in class or on a quiz, test, that sort of thing. And number 10 was screaming children who were having temper tantrums. More about that in a moment. What was even more fascinating was the idea that none of these top 10 moments had things that things that we do that annoy others. Perhaps when we oversleep so that we're late to something we were supposed to be at, or we talk bad about someone behind their back for no reason, and we don't really see the benefit of how this is damaging in us. This lesson, patient people know there's more to the story, is all about the idea of looking at what the actual story is. And here's the deal. Matt Chandler says it best when he tells us that we are not the point. We're not the point. Sorry to bust your bubble this morning. Maybe you're even sitting quarantined in your house this afternoon. You're not the point. You've been created by a higher power. You've been created by God. And you've been created by God for His glory. The dog that you guys might have at your house, your siblings that you may fight with over and over again, or as you spend more time together, you really are going to fight over the next few days. Your mom and dad that you may or may not think knows what's best for you right now in this stage of your life. They're not the point. God is the point. God's created each and every one of them for a reason, for a special reason. And believe me, I got my shirt on this afternoon that says God's got this. Even in the current circumstances of where we're sitting right now, patience is the one thing this world needs. Patient people know there's more to the story. There's more to the story of what's going on currently in our world. There's more to the story and more to God's story about how this is going to unfold and unravel in the great scheme of things. The great story is what we know as the gospel. God created us for relationship. God created us for relationship and for us to be eternal with Him. Then something goes wrong. We call that the fall. Adam and Eve did not want to abide by the rules. They didn't want to abide by simple rules that God gave them so that we could be in communication. So it broke fellowship. It broke fellowship for us to have with God. It broke fellowship for man and woman. It ultimately was bad news. And ever since then, and where we sit now, we are sitting at the fall. We're sitting at this. We're sitting in this stage where we need restoration. Thankfully, that's why Jesus came. We need restoration now. We need restoration in the future before we stand before God. And that is the gospel. That is the story. God is going to ultimately come back and restore everything through Jesus, but he had to restore us first at the cross. And that's why Jesus came. When we think through patience this week, we think about this. Patient people know there's more to the story. There's a top 10 for all of those pet peeves. But the best thing that we can do when we think about patience is to pause, take a big breath, and to have enough patience to think about the other side of that story. Just like there's a grand story, just like that 20-second story about the gospel, there's also a story about why the people do the way that people do what they do. Even when you see the news, you're seeing crazy things happening right now in the world. It's out of fear. It's not showing patience. It's thinking that they know what's best. Solomon is going to tell us through Proverbs here, unwise people don't practice patience. They think that whatever is in their reality, whatever is their story, that the world revolves around them, that they are above the rules. And so you see a short run on toilet paper right now. That's just a small example. We all must practice patience. We all affect other people with our actions beyond our thoughts. And when we don't show patience, when we go 0 to 10 and we're not thinking about the other person or their story or why they've behaved the way they do, that's when we will make some really unwise decisions. I'll kind of end this afternoon, by giving you another story. There was a guy riding the New York subway the other day. He was riding along much like most people do. And if you ever have had the opportunity to ride the subway in New York, most people aren't talking to each other. They've got their AirPods in. You've got the men that are reading the Wall Street Journal. Other people, the last thing they're doing is interacting with people, which is unfortunate. However, they stop at a stop near Queens, and a man with 3 kids comes on and interrupts the quiet. The kids are poorly behaved. They're bouncing off the walls. They're knocking over the guy's newspaper with the Wall Street Journal. People are taking out their AirPods and wondering, who's interrupted my life? And so the guy standing there next to him with the dad there is just completely flabbergasted. The guy has no responsibility over his kids, or not making his kids behave in public. How dare him? So he gets to the point where patience is the last thing he's thinking about. He's overextended patience, and he's no longer thinking about this guy's story. So he turns to the guy politely and says, "Sir, ever since you got on this subway station, the subway cart has completely changed. Your kids are completely out of control. What are you going to do about them?" And the guy at this point, who had gone off into a daze and was completely oblivious to his kids, said, "I'm so sorry, sir. We just left the hospital, and their mother just died. And I guess they're having a hard time processing it." Story might seem dramatic to you. However, there's always another side of the story. This week, will you practice patience so that you can make wise choices? Here's the last part of that verse that is absolutely great when we think about patience. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. We're not the point in this life, but God tells us it's to our glory to practice patience, because we're going to look like we're showing wisdom. And when everyone else jumps off the deep end to tell a guy who had just lost his wife to calm his kids down because they were annoyed in a subway cart, there's a way more to that man's life, because it's changed forever in that story. Will you practice patience this week? Will you look to see how you can be and ultimately be an example to others by practicing patience? That's now and later week 4. That's Proverbs chapter 19. I look forward to being together as soon as possible. Look out for these Q&A questions to drop later on with this video, and look out for the daily devotionals that will come be posted on Instagram, posted on our Facebook group, each one each day for you to read through. I also give you a clue that we have also dropped something at Mountain Park on our website that came this morning. I hope you've worshipped with your family since you couldn't be in person, and also just seen those checkout links for how you can stay connected during this time. Look forward to hearing from you soon digitally on our social media. Until then, we'll talk to you later.